Hello, I'm Aaron and welcome back to the Last Stand Gamers channel. So what happened to Medieval Engineers? So back in February 2015, Medieval Engineers was released in early access. It promised to be this cool medieval sandbox game that was kind of mirroring Space Engineers towards a degree, but promising to use different tech and different equipment, so it wasn't quite the same game, but it was still giving players a similar, easy building experience with some more advanced mechanics. Exactly what we wanted, and the community met it with a very positive result. We were happy to see that Keen were branching out, even though we were worried. Things started out super positive with real consistent updates as well. New updates, new features were being added in, just like the beginning of the Space Engineers development, that give the community a lot of trust in how this project was being handled and put a lot of the skepticism to kind of one side. That was great. Now, even players from Space Engineers desperately wanted some of the features, and I'll quickly list some of the cool features that came out in Medieval Engineers. We had a rope block. Now, this was cool. It could be extended, you used to open doors, climb down different things. Space Engineers players would probably still love something like that. We had peasant commands. You could order AI to axe wood down for you and do other simple commands. There was food, so food resources, and so there was multi-blocks, so you could attach blocks of different scales to each other and build it within a grid. This was fascinating. This was stuff that Space Engineers players had really wanted, and they were hoping that it might even return back to the Space Engineers game, but this is about Medieval Engineers' journey. So with all that being said, at one point the game started to receive less and less updates. This started to worry the community towards a degree, and on the 4th of February 2019, so almost 4 years after it was released in early access, the last real update to the development came out. And after this, it stopped without any explanation. The community were confused, they were a little bit lost. 3 months later though, a link to the forums appeared. So this was the post. Following the 0.7 release, major overhaul of audio, visuals and blocks, and Space Engineers launching out of early access, the SE and ME teams merged into one unified Keen Software House team. Additionally, you may have noticed fewer Medieval Engineers updates as we have focused on important tasks for Space Engineers. Do not worry, Medieval Engineers is not abandoned. There's still plans for Medieval Engineers, and in the near future, Keen Software House will continue to work on the game. Now, this forum post did restore hope to a small and loyal player base who was stuck with this game through quite worrying times without any updates at all. So they thought there was going to be content coming, there was going to be updates starting to pop back out to Medieval Engineers, and it was just a hump in the road. They just needed to divert some resources back to Space Engineers to keep that developing. But weren't they in for a surprise? So as the months passed without any more updates, everyone started to assume maybe they're just going to throw this all into one giant update, add further polishing, fix many of the annoying bugs, and do it all in one giant update rather than a few smaller fixes. Then March the 17th, 2019 rolled around with the announcement, update and leaving early access. Players were filled with excitement. They thought this was going to be the big update that Medieval Engineers needed. But reading into this post, it explained that the game wasn't going to receive any more updates or content. In fact, Keen were going to release this as a finished product with a few more minor fixes, and they were going to concentrate their resources back on Space Engineers. So this is what they had to say. We haven't released a major update since February 2019. The reason for this decision was that we are changing the focus of Keen Software House team. We have the restructure of the team focused on moving Space Engineers out of early access, then on the development of Space Engineers for Xbox One, and the continual support and upgrades for Space Engineers. We re-evaluated the Medieval Engineers project, and looking at the numbers, we've decided to end development on this title and release the game out of early access. So something I thought was good to interject here was a comparison of the two games, Space Engineers and Medieval Engineers, and you can see the amount of players in Space Engineers is leagues ahead of the amount playing Medieval Engineers, and for a developer that can be quite disheartening. So before we go into the community's response, I find it quite important to have a look at this little post, and particularly the FAQ at the bottom. We're going to look at 3 of the 4 questions because we've already covered one of them. Now the question that was asked is, why are you releasing the update now? The answer was, we were planning this update for quite a long time, but we restructured our team. We simply did not find the right time to put it all together for release. Question 2, are you coming back to Medieval Engineers? In other words, should we expect more updates in the upcoming months? We've decided to focus on one project at a time. Our immediate focus is Space Engineers for PC and our upcoming release of Space Engineers for Xbox. We do not currently plan further major updates for Medieval Engineers. Medieval Engineers has been a great project for us. And the final question that I think is quite interesting is, so what's happening with the game? The answer is, I feel the Medieval Engineers fulfilled all the plans we had at the beginning. I understand that some players may feel that it has greater unrealised potential. For us, Medieval Engineers is a successful project which helped to shape our games and our team. The days following this post were rather bleak. A community that was already damaged by the lack of content and updates was now damaged further, divided by disappointed players who simply left the game overnight, and other players who were enraged, some of them even demanding the game be removed from Steam. At the same time, the reviews took a turn for the worse, with people dropping frustrated reviews, just not understanding why they didn't live out to what they planned to release with this project, but still putting that stamp of approval and finish on it. The modding community did make a little bit of a fight though. They demanded and asked, could we have the source code for the game? Could we continue to develop it? They were met with a response that the developers were not planning on releasing the source code for it anytime soon. So this put an end to the modders completing the game, developing it further, just adding to the frustration. So what's happening with the game right now? Well, there's still a hardcore group of players playing it, ranging from between 10 to 30 players each day, and there's also quite an interesting mod community in it that are modding it, making additions. And I will say, Medieval Engineers does have something. It has an alternative building and mechanic system that you can't find in Space Engineers. The way that ropes and pulleys and levers come into consideration, it does make a different experience that is exciting, and I don't want to pull away from that. I think the real issue at hand is how they handled that breaking communication and kept players holding onto the seat hoping for more. That's what really did in the community. So before we wrap this one up, I wanted to drop one more fact on you. Now this is quite interesting. Just recently, Space Engineers have trademarked the name Roman Engineers. Roman Engineers, what could that be about? Let me know what you think it's about in the comment section below, and I will see you next time.